Okay. Just trying to set up here. And hi, Blue Butterfly. Wellspring Oaks. Crystal, is that you? Hi. Hello. I decided to attempt to finish up this painting that I've been working on, which is the Three of Cups. And I'm not sure if I'll finish it tonight, but I will attempt to. For now, you guys can join me in this little... See, I have a good memory, Crystal. I had somebody ask me what paints I'm using, so I guess I should show that before I begin. I am using, hold on, a couple of paints. So I'm using a gouache and white gouache, just, basic. Well, actually, this is Winsor and Newton. And then I usually paint with Daniel Smith watercolor paints. And sometimes I will mix them up. I have this tray here, and I've had it for a while. This is Winsor and Newton, and you can see the state it's in. But I still work on it. And then I took the Daniel Smith paints and just put them in the tray, in a separate tray, and that way I can just kind of have them, add to them whenever I need to. And in terms of paper, sorry for all the sounds. In terms of paper, I use this right here, which is Fluid Hot Press Finish Watercolor. It's 300 GSM, 12 by 16. So these are my tools, and now I will show you where we left off. Hi from Australia, Kim. Hello. This is the beauty of the internet. I get people from all over the world, even though a lot of people on the East Coast are getting ready to go to sleep now. Some of you are just waking up, so I told my husband I was going to go paint live, and he's like, everybody's asleep. I'm like, no, they're not. So here is the painting that I started. And since, so I think I did this a couple of days ago, I added salt, and I removed the salt, and we got this texture going. I'm going to look at the chat. I'll go in and out and try and look at the chat as I paint, but so you can ask questions and I'll try and answer them. This one, I'm trying to think. I actually did something after we went live. I worked a little bit on the girls. So now I'm just going to go back and try and, redo all the salt crystals and stuff. What I normally will do before I start painting is I will spritz my watercolors with water, so that way they're not going to be dry, and that it's easier to work with them. And right now I'm going to go through and try and pull some of the leaves from the crystal patterns, and then and the grass, and try and work a little bit on the top part. Usually you kind of have to go, if one area is wet, you have to let it dry, and then you kind of move around the page. And hopefully by the time you get back to where you want to, then it's going to be dry. This is the Three of Cups. Yes, Crystal, it's Three of Cups. I'm a little slow on the cups for some reason. Cups are my least favorite suit, I think. So I always tend to spend a lot of time on cups. Maybe that's why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the trees, the leaves in the background, and I don't know where I'm gonna do the leaves. I'm just kind of winging it. I go by the pattern of the salt crystals, so wherever I kind of look and see something, I'll try and pull it out, and kind of go with the flow. I guess in a way it's kind of like scrying through the leaves where you're seeing different shapes and stuff. So I'm just moving and adding darker paint, darker leaves in the areas where I want shadow, and then in the areas that I want light, where supposedly you'd have like sunlight fall on the leaves, then that area is going to have lighter color leaves. But right now I'm moving in here and trying to give them some shape. So we got a couple of people in. How is everybody doing? Wherever in the world you are, I'm assuming some of you are waking up, some of you are probably, maybe there's somebody in the East Coast. I'm not the only night owl. So here is one leaf. And then kind of bring it through. I'm also going to bring in some branches through this leafy area, and because that's going to make it look a little bit more real. I don't have a reference photo that I'm working from right now, so this is all kind of whatever I want. There's pros and cons when not having a reference photo. The pros are you can do whatever you want. The cons are sometimes it can look off. But there's a freedom in it. So right now, I'm just adding some branches, some thin branches. And like so. I only worked a little bit on it after the live the next day for like probably half hour. I didn't have a lot of time, so this is the next steps. And as you build on the painting, it starts to get more detailed. If you're trying to rush it and add more detail from the beginning, then you can't get discouraged either, because if you think that it doesn't have enough detail and it doesn't look good, then you can't just give up. You have to like keep adding, keep building it, and then eventually things will start popping through. You're zoning out. Okay. Good night. Oh, you're in Texas? Oh, wait a second. Crystal, are you in Texas? Oh, that's tough. So here, I see some other shapes. So I'm just kind of following the watercolor pattern. And a larger one here. If I really wanted to be precise, like I mentioned before, I would, go look at some exact shapes and decide if I want to have like an oak or holly or whatever tree that I want to depict. But right now it's just, the focus is not them. Oh, the 3 on a swing? Well, okay, so I just thought like celebrating and having fun, and like what did we do as children that we no longer do as adults, and what exactly the feeling and that joyous sensation that kids have when you see them playing at the park, and So I wanted to kind of capture that because the Three of Cups is such a, I view it as a happy, positive, joyous card. And that's kind of how it came about. Because I was toying with the idea of, well, maybe I should have them, walking together or, dancing. There's a lot of decks that will show 3 dancing girls. And I did have something similar to that for the Bone Stone deck that I illustrated. They were dancing around a cauldron. So I did not want to repeat that, in a way, plagiarize myself. But I guess I could have done that, but I figured I'd just do something a little different. And there is something fun, when I've actually tried that, with the kids at the park going on a swing, and you kind of get that feeling that you're a kid again. So I can totally see 3 friends, having some fun going out to a park. And good thing I didn't do it like a seesaw or slide. That would be harder to draw, but this was easy. So that's how this came. Right, it's innocent. It's a little innocent. Yeah, they're just having fun, I'm not putting the cups in any of the cards. I think let me think. I don't think I did. They're in swords. There's a couple of cards with swords, but it's not the number of swords that should appear. So I don't have like 5 swords, 6 swords, or I think I have like a sword in the Ace of Swords, and I'm just, if I do put them in, it's mostly because the character that's in the card wants to have it. I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes I'll start off painting something, and then as I'm working, it just ends up totally different. The card wants something else. Like the image that I'm drawing, it doesn't have to necessarily be a card, but any painting, at one point it takes a life of its own, and regardless of how you intended for it to start, it will deviate from that. Unless you're really forcing yourself to stick to one way. And I think that kind of happens with music too. I guess music, any type of art, writing, if you're writing a novel, at one point your characters kind of define how the story's going to go. And so they're not going to hold. It's mostly I'm trying to depict the meaning of the card without showing the element, because it's going to be written anyway on the card, I figured. And I already did that with the Abyss. The Abyss Tarot, I actually did incorporate every single sword and cup. And one time I realized that after I finished the cards, I pulled the proof and I realized that my 10 of Cups was missing, I think 1 or 2 cups. And I was like counting them. And I'm like, where's the other 2 cups? I forgot to paint them in, to draw them in. So I had to go and redraw the card. So you can kind of see they're coming in and out. And I did a pattern in the clouds too. Let me just kind of bring it closer a little bit. And you can see there's like a little bit of pattern in the sky. So I'm trying to transform this into a cloud pattern. And I did that also with salt. So the way that I would do that is mix some blue, some light cobalt blue with a darker blue, and then go back in and try and go back after this pattern. So in a way, if you want to think about it, it's kind of random, right? Like where the patterns are falling. But it still works. There's multiple ways to do, cloud patterns, but this is just a way I found that works. But it's also very tedious with watercolor. So I'm pulling this darker cloud out. And that'll leave me with some spaces here that I can fill in. And I haven't decided, I think I am going to cut the card this way. So you only see a portion of the tree maybe. Hi Nikki84. I love the colors of this card. Thank you. I'm trying to make it happy. Through colors. I'm painting happy trees. Happy trees. Okay. So the rope I'm going to paint after I do some of the blues. And some of the decisions that I make when I'm painting are based on the colors and where things are lighter and darker. And that's kind of how I know. I have to balance it out in terms of tones, I guess, like wherever. So I painted them a little more so I can kind of know where to go darker and lighter in the composition. And if you're working from a reference photo, it's actually easier. But if you're not, then you kind of have to imagine everything. So I'm going to go in here and bring this area out. So I'm tracing the shape of that salt pattern, and then I'm going to go in and make this darker, but also get the line that I made a little less obvious. Kind of like that. I could always add more white, but I'll leave it. So that gives them the feeling of their movement. I might add, in order to give them more movement, that can be done through their garments, so their dresses, just adding a little bit more motion, like adding more brushwork, and that should give the sense of movement, like more. And also their hair, if the hair is flying, you kind of know that there's wind, things are moving. And so kind of like that. I use different brushes for that. I actually made my own, well, I bought a brush, but then I decided that it was too thick, so I cut some of the hair, I trim them to make them fit, because you're never gonna find something perfect. You kind of have to make your own stuff. So here, if I add some hair to the side, that's gonna give them a little bit more motion. And she's actually gonna have some blue in her hair. because the highlights of black or black hair, if I don't add any highlights, it's going to look like a flat area. And in order to get some pieces in that you can see that they are hair and they have different curves, I have to lighten some areas and then add a different shade. Hi Chase, how's it going? Haven't seen you, 2 hours. How are you doing? Getting ready for your own live? I know I haven't been doing any lives for a while, so I figured I'd try to work with you guys on this one. See how far I get. Nikki, you received my Oracle of Echoes last week. Oh, yay. I'm so happy you got it. That was pretty quick. I shipped everything within a couple of weeks. So, and I usually will plan the decks when they go out. So I knew that there was there's the Chinese New Year in February, and I had it set up pre-orders for December and January, and then then you'd have to wait till the end of February to get anything. So I set everything up to get them February 1st, and then we got hit by a snowstorm. So that was stressful for me because they were sitting in Jersey somewhere. I couldn't get them. But they arrived, and I was able to ship everything in 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yeah, I was very productive. This deck will come out, Crystal, I'm hoping at the end of this year. So I have to finish the Cups suit and then Pentacles and Wands. So I still have a little bit to go. But, it is what it is. I was hoping with the pandemic things would get a little better, the kids could return back to school, because it's hard for me to work during the day when they're home because I have to attend to them. So I no longer paint so much during the day. I paint now at night. So things are a little slower. But I could still make that deadline, It also depends on the creative aspect, like how many ideas I get for the card. If the ideas come fast, then I can finish them faster. If it takes me a while. So it's like right now you can kind of see that it's a slow process. The details, I have to kind of go in and work on bringing out some of the dress folds, and it's just this slow process, but it will eventually make more sense. I always laugh because I do speed up some of my paintings. I film everything and then I just speed everything up to a minute. You can find them. I think I have some on my Instagram. And it's funny because it looks so fast. It looks like I just did it. But it takes a couple of days. Depends on how fast I work. Do you use a color wheel and pay attention to warm and cool colors? I don't use a color. Well, I don't have any color wheels in front of me. I kind of, I do pay attention to warm and cool colors. I try, I kind of know. I've been painting for a while, a long time, actually. So I know that certain things are going to be cooler and certain things are going to be warmer. But I go with what feels right, because you can use a palette, and the thing is, if you're using something and you're trying to go by the book, you're going to be missing a lot of things that can happen by accident. And that's not to say that you shouldn't, study and make sure that you know the basic stuff. But my advice is sometimes to just do whatever you need to do and tell yourself that you're not going to show it to anybody. And this is just your exploration. And when you do that, when you give yourself permission and don't restrict yourself because of thinking that you're going to show it to somebody or be criticized or judged on what you did, then it'll just happen. But I do know certain areas need to be warm and cool. So for instance, in the shade, I use cooler tones. In the light, I use warmer tones. Like right now, I know that the direction of the light is coming from above and it's hitting the branch. It's also hitting her hair and the top of her dress and the top of their faces. So I'm going light and then dark underneath the branch. And then that will cast a shadow on the bush underneath. So this will be darker. So it's like it's a play on light and dark. You chose 2 brunettes and didn't go for a blonde. Yes, I didn't. No, I figured I'd drawn enough blondes. And honestly, I like to draw... blondes are not my favorite to draw. The having yellow hair for some reason is not my favorite color. Red is actually my favorite color to draw in hair. I had red hair for 20 years. So it's just, preference. But we kind of draw sometimes what we know, what we're comfortable and familiar with. And I have a lot of friends in my life that are brunettes right now, so it's easier for me to illustrate that. My children, yes, take your time. Your children need you. Yes, they do. They they will come from Zoom everywhere, every time. Like it's Zoom this, Zoom doesn't work, Zoom. I ordered things from the US before and usually it takes a while to come to the UK. Yeah, with COVID, when COVID hit last year, everything was delayed, like really delayed, like 2 months delay. And it was very frustrating because I think they didn't have enough planes to ship things. And so it took forever for things to get there. Now, I've noticed that some countries have gotten back to normal and others have not. There's still packages that have been returned to me, where the post, they're supposed to notify people and they don't, and they just mark them as the person did not come to pick it up, but in fact they didn't even notify them. So that's a problem. I've had a package that was supposed to go to New York, which is a state away from me. Something like that should take 2 days. It decided to take a trip through the U.S. To the West Coast, and then back to Jersey, and then finally go. It was a traveling deck. It's just, I don't know why. They do certain things that have no explanation. But I'm always glad when they do get to overseas, because it's always, I know it's stressful for people purchasing from there, and also, for us, the people who sell from here, because you want to make sure that your products get to where they're supposed to. But it looks like things are getting back. So I did the branch there. Again, this branch will be cut off. It's not going to stay. It's going to get cut off. But I'm painting it just in case. You never know if I decide to, put everything in the card, show everything, or cut it off. I want to give myself that freedom. So this is the Tarot of Echoes. I'll be working on this deck this whole year. I am not taking on any projects, any new projects, because I don't want to put it on hold. So I'm going to do my best to just work on this one. Hopefully it'll get done. So at this point, I'm going to add more. I think I want more salt here. So as you can see, it's going to go back and forth. And I already have a lighter green. I'm going in with a darker wet green. Like I said, underneath the branch is going to be darker, and also here. And when I do this, I want to create some patterns. So I'm just going to add more salt. And I had some salt. Where is it? Oh, here it is. So I'm using the sea salt crystals, the large salt crystals. But I have to open it because it's one of those grinders. And I'm just going to do this. And that'll give me some leafy patterns. It has to be on wet surface, otherwise it will not suck up the paint and leave those patterns. So now I'm going to scoot this way and work on this bottom part. I'm going to add some blades of grass. I'm using this. I'm going to try this brush. This, even though it looks pretty big, it gives some interesting like squishies. So I'm working on some detail here. And kind of what's closer to me is going to be larger. What's further away is going to be smaller. So I'm going to have some blades of grass that are larger, and then the ones that are receding in the background are going to be smaller. So right now, that's why these are very big. And that's kind of like, if you remember that, what's close is large, what's further is smaller. That's going to help a lot when it comes to, getting things looking right. Perspective is hard to master if you want it perfect in terms of like if you have geometric shapes like chairs, tables. Those are things that will have lines that converge and are parallel and all that. So those are going to be, you have to be really careful when you draw. But when it comes to something like this, when you paint, you can do a lot just by doing that. Making sure that the things that are closer are larger and the things that are further away are smaller. So I'm adding the blades of grass. And then if I want to get even more detail on that, then I would go in with a thinner brush and just kind of go and double that line, make it even thicker. And you'll see what I mean when I say like bigger. So obviously this is a very large line, very wide blade of grass. But if I go and add some of this light green, and I just do very thin in between. Right there, you can kind of see it's starting to do that. It's playing with dimension and all that. So I'm just going to add some lines, some smaller lines. And there's actually a brush that will help you do that. It's the fan brush. The fan brush, this one, which I actually broke. Well, I didn't break. My son broke it, but I can't throw it away. I just can't because the brush is fine. So I taped it. You can use something like this and then go in and then just do that and get little thin strokes, tiny strokes in the background. So then you have larger ones and then smaller ones. Kind of like that. And you can even like do something where it would come up to them. If you think like, I like to, when I paint something like this, I try to think of the mood, right? Like if I was actually there, what would happen? What would I see? How would nature play? So since they're moving, I can see that the grass would probably wisp up and go in certain directions. The trees would move, the leaves would blow. So there's your imagination plays a great deal in this. Angie, there you go. I use a liner brush for grass and contemplating getting a fan brush for the grasses. Yeah, I use this sometimes to do that. And you can hold it like vertically like this or have it do that. So if you do it straight, then it will give you also these very straight lines. And you can also fan it. And right now, I think like I would also add some yellow here because like some areas of the grass, if we're thinking that it's in sunlight, they might get hit by some light. So I would probably add some yellow because we're trying to get a lot of pattern going. Is it going to look exactly like grass? No, I mean, I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to that. I love, artists that will go in with detail and do all that. And I can, but for the purpose of, the illustrations that I do for tarot, because the image is so big, so when you shrink it down, all the detail gets really small anyway. So you lose so much of the detail. There's, at some point, like, there's no point in going so in depth, I guess. Except in certain areas, like when you cut this card, it'll be like this. You'll definitely see these areas. You'll see some of here. Yeah, I think that the fan brush is worth it, but you have to be careful because people recognize the pattern of the brush. So sometimes when you just use it, so if I were to, here, I'll do it on a piece of paper so I don't mess up here. If you just do this, everybody's going to recognize that it's a fan brush, and they'll be like, oh, she used the brush. She did everything with the brush. But if you alternate it, you kind of move it around, you have to like use different brushes, not just this one, then that will give it more variation. But I definitely use it. I think it's a great tool. I think it's, there's a reason why it was made. So here, I'm going to go in and add some black so I can pull some of the blades forward. So I'm leaving, not everywhere, but in some areas where I would think is shade. And now, mind you, here, there's going to be text. So at the same time, I'm thinking, I have to think, I'm going to have some text at the bottom there. So I need to make sure that it's dark enough or light enough so I don't have to do too much Photoshop work. Whenever you're creating something for the purpose of, you know, putting it in a book, an illustration, like even a book illustration, you have to think, where is it going to go? Like, how are you illustrating it? Is it going to have text on it? Is it going to be on one side of the page? Is it going to be by itself? Because you want to do as little retouching as possible. At least I do. I don't want to retouch a lot of it. So then I like to plan them a little bit in advance, meaning I already know that I'm going to have text at the bottom. Probably it's going to fall around here. So that means that this area has to be a little darker. I hope the cards, Nikki84 is asking, I hope the cards will be borderless so we can see the whole picture. They will be borderless. I always do them borderless. I mean, it has to have a placeholder for the text because then it gets really messy in terms of having a cast shadow so the text pops up. But around, it's going to be borderless. However, it will be cropped to about here. So you're going to have the card cut around here like that. Why? Because the focus is them. And if you have the whole image in the card, then they're going to be so small and you're going to lose a lot of their their energy. But yes, I prefer borderless cards myself. I mean, I know why they put them in, but I prefer them without some work. Let's see if I answered all your questions. Yep, I think I got all the questions in. Okay, so right now I'm probably going to wrap it up. I've been on here for about 45 minutes. Time flies. But I will do a couple more things. I'm going to go and kind of outline her leg. And I also know that there's going to be, I have to fix the dress to give it a little bit more shadow. And you guys picked the color for the redhead for her dress because I was undecided. So thank you to the previous folks who joined the first live. So right now, this needs to be a little bit dark and then maybe a little under. And then I think I'm going to add some more blue right there because it's too white, the page. I think for this painting, probably one more session because it's 1 a.m. here. And I'm going to wrap it up soon. So probably by the next session, it would be done. And then you guys would get to see the final look of the card. But thank you for joining me again. You were here when the dress, Nikki, you were here when the dress was chosen. Thank you. Thanks for coming to my second. And keeping me company. You know, I work odd hours, so seeing you guys here makes me feel it's not that odd working at 1 a.m. You like the textures? Yeah, I think they're coming in pretty nice around this area. Let's see if some of the salt has, if I move it, if it'll give anything. So you can kind of see. Let's see if this is, can kind of see that it's absorbed some of the green. But it's still doing its thing. So thank you for stopping by. I'm going to wrap it up. 6 a.m. in the UK. I'm at work, but oh my gosh, it's 6 a.m. You're working. Wow. You are just amazing to be up at 6 a.m. working. I will see you probably on Monday. Well, I'll try maybe tomorrow night. We'll see if it'll happen either tomorrow or during the week. And wish me luck towards the end there. It always gets nerve-wracking when you get to almost the end of it. So have a good night.